Bonjour et welcome to the Tour Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, also known as the Dauphiné, formerly known as the Dauphiné. It's still a great place to see some new bikes. And we'll start with this new Orbea prototype that we literally heard nothing about. And it's popped up with some very interesting hand-drawn kind of lines on it. The actual visual distraction lines kind of tell you maybe what they've done to the frame, where they've focused the aero. And also it helps us to kind of see some of the features because it gives you like a point of reference. The first thing that I actually noticed about this bike, obviously beyond the lines, was the kind of the tire clearance seems to have been improved over the 30 millimeters of the last bike. So maybe there's just a bit more space around these tires. These are 30 millimeter tires on this bike, and those Aqua wheels from memory have about a 23 millimeter internal width. So that tire is going to, sit nice and fat, and because there's visible kind of space within the frame, maybe they can push to a 32. We can also see that the fork has been deepened. And it's been deepened, I think, on the front edge, like the front, in front of the axle. Now, a lot of brands have been doing this, specialized with the new SL9 seems to have done that. The Cube that we saw yesterday, they've done that with this as well. So this is quite an interesting bike because they're obviously chasing full-on aero. This is an aero bike. And one of the ways that they can do that is by adding surface area to the fork at the front to kind of cling onto that air, make it a little bit less messy. We'll have to wait for the tech details to come out to see what they've done up at the front end, because the fork is obvious. That's an obvious change for me. But the head tube, a little bit more subtle. Interestingly, you can't see it from here, but the bottom bracket actually extends down under the BB area. I have no idea why they're doing that. I don't think it would be a stiffness thing. I think it would be an airflow thing. But actually, while we're down at that bottom bracket junction, there's no storage box here anymore. The bolts seem to have been removed. It was an interesting design feature of the old bike, but not one that any of the riders could use in UCI races. Back up to the front end of the bike now, and I'm actually quite surprised at the svelteness of the bar. We've seen a lot of brands, Cube included, making their kind of bar, their top section of the bar, really quite deep. And this is quite thin, so this could actually be an aero bike that at the front end remains quite comfortable. That's all we really know about this bike right now, but we'll have to wait for Orbea to tell us the tech details. Let's go over and see the new Van Rysel, because that is another super interesting new aero race bike. Climbing bike, aero climbing bike. What is really quite interesting about this bike is the fact that they seem to have mated the front end of the RCR-F onto the rear end of a really skinny bike. It's kind of what Specialized did with the Tarmac SL8, really comparing the back end of sort of an Athos-ish frame set with the aero front end. I really like the look of this, but it does make me think, where's this going to land in the range? Because if you've got all of the aero front end, do you really need the RCR-F? Also a real nice little tech detail. This fork here, very, very thin as the bike gets stolen away. As soon as you pull a camera out for these things, done. Behind me we have the new Ridley climbing bike. It's a prototype, and I absolutely love this from Ridley because lightweight bikes are back. There's a few interesting things about this, and I wanted to start with actually the tire clearance. I know it sounds dull, but there's loads of space around these, what I think are 28 millimeter tires. I guess more importantly than tire clearance, so for most of you with a climbing bike, is the weight. Now, I asked the mechanics here, and in this build, they're troubling the UCI's weight limit. I really, really like this. And in particular, on this bike, the rider here, I'm not sure whose it is, apologies, but he's running 167.5 millimeter cranks, which is a relatively unusual size. It's quite clear how much effort Ridley is putting into making this a properly light machine. Do you see any paint? No, you can see right through to the carbon on this bike, which gives it a really, really unique kind of design. A lot of carbon bikes, you know, once they're covered in paint, you can't really see what's happening. I love that you can see kind of all of the joins and all of the kind of, or a bit of the layup here. But aero seemingly is quite important too, because if you take a look at that fork, there's not a huge amount of sculpting going on, but they have made sure to make the fork slightly deeper than they need it to. And then the brake is just recessed in on the other side. Very, very nice detail. It looks like it's going to be a relatively comfortable bike, though I will caution, as an owner of an S-Works Athos, that bike could be a lot more comfortable, but they've chased such a low weight. If Ridley have avoided that issue here, this could be a stunner, because I think you'll agree, looks lovely. Lightweight climbing bikes. We love them. If you're wondering where the SL9 is, I am too. I've come over to the Bora bus and there were spy shots of a new SL9 found at this race, but it seems to have come here just in the team truck for reasons unknown. It seems like it was Remco's bike. Remco's not here. I've checked. Their leader is Danny Martinez for this race, and the rest of the riders aren't Remco. But then you can just fall back on this render that we got off Weight Weenies. I thought I'd try over at the Soudal Quickstep bus, because they're a specialised team, but again, nothing. One of the things that I love with a pro bike is the attention to detail that they go to, and this is really the case with this Y1 RS of Isaac Del Toro. This bike is an aero bike, and what Colnago have done is to make sure that it's super light enough for the mountains. They've just stripped all of the paint here, so you get a really good look at the carbon fibre layup underneath. It's a really, really nice touch. But the details aren't all about the weight. There's a lovely little sticker cover here over a port.
It's for the battery.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because this used to just be one thick tube.
Yeah.
But obviously now with the aero fairing, the battery goes into this part here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So it's a battery cover. The chain has been changed. Don't roll away, bike. Chain. Isaac's not here. So what we have here is just a standard Shimano chain that they then take all of the packing grease off of, and then they dunk it in hot wax, and you get a nicely waxed chain. I do this to my own bike, not with silk hot wax. I just use the drip stuff, but keeps it cleaner. It's meant to be faster as well, but it should also extend the life of the chain, which, when you're riding as many kilometers as these guys, might make a difference. I also really, really love this little number holder here. Just at the base of the seat clamp, looks really clean. So over at the Lidl Trek buses, we were looking for something new, something exciting. There's not really too much to report here, but a couple of tech little bits. So Wanayuzo has a fully stripped down carbon bike. Looks absolutely lovely. Looking around as well, just got these Trek aero bottles just lying around. And really, I'm surprised that more brands aren't actually doing these, like integrating aero bottles and bottle cages into their aero bike designs. It seems like a pretty easy win. Just looking at Oscar Onley's bike here, he's got it set up with the deep scope wheels. And we found that these were the fastest in our testing, our little mini group test. Real world testing, these stood up very, very well. Very expensive wheels. In fact, that whole bike, I would say it's going to cost you, well, it's going to go into the teens of the thousands of pounds. Would you have one of these? Let me know in the comments. Will Jones, your leg is in the way of my shot. Sorry. I'm down here with the Lapierres of the Picnic Post NL team, and I just love one little thing. You know, if your power meter's low before a ride, it can be a ride ruiner. Just get a battery pack. Just get a battery bank and pop it on charge. Or get your mechanic to do it. Some of the most interesting bikes you can actually look at with pro team bikes are the TT bikes, because these are often a hodgepodge of components, but you know, they're designed to be as fast as possible. And they don't get rolled out that much, so they don't necessarily need to be fully sponsor compliant. Take this chainring. That is a lot of tape covering a load of logos. Well, this isn't a Shimano chainring, it's a real big one-piece carbon beastie. And there's more tape to be found. And this thing that I love, just in there, behind the chainring, that's a piece of bar tape again, bar end tape, that's holding on the Di2 wire, which means that the mechanics can really easily switch this over to a 2x system if they need to. But here they've got a very, very sleek looking kind of chain holder, chain guide, holding things in place. There's more tape down here, there's more tape there, covering the valve hole. But the most interesting for me is this Vision cockpit system. Now, this looks like a relatively sorted system. Underneath, you're going to find a load of adjustability points. But it's surprising to me that this system isn't actually compatible with the Di2 wires. So the Di2 wires run along the outside. They kind of come out of the extensions and then go up and in. It's very interesting, this bike. Over at the Alpecin bus, not a lot has changed here. We have a fleet of aerodes. They're all in the same colour scheme because at this race, there's no Van der Poel, there's no Philipsen. They are going to be doing the Tour, but they're not at this race. So no super special bikes here, just a collection of big chain rings. One thing that I was interested to see though, or not see, was that none of the riders seem to have opted to use the latest cockpit that is from the new Endure CFR. It's an option for the aerode. It's just, I would imagine a lot of the riders have had their fit done, they're settled with their position, and they don't want to go messing that up. But it will be interesting to see if we see any of these bikes sporting that new bar as the season goes forward. Next up, we've got the absolutely gorgeous look 795 blade RS of the Cofidis team. I love this bike. It is an absolute stunner. And I also love that this is the only, well, it's the only Campagnolo group set currently at the race. And it's just, I love it because it's such a clean design. When you've seen so many of the other bikes that have, you know, cables protruding, bits of tape to hold those cables in and everything, you come to this and you see such a clean rear end, clean front end. Yes, the derailleurs are a bit big for my liking, but this looks lovely. There are two other things that I really want to point to on this bike. And the first is up at the top. This rider has got a lot of spacers under that stem. And it used to be the fact that, like, if you wanted to emulate the pros, you would basically slam your stem and just deal with the back consequences. Now we see a lot more riders being very sensible in their setups and going to stuff like this, maybe not this extreme, but going to higher front ends just to give themselves more power, basically, or allow their bodies to put out those crazy watts over many, many hours. The final thing is just up on the computer mount, is that he's got a little bit of tape or furry tape or velcro-y stuff up there, and that just stops the computers from rattling around, or any chance of them rattling around. Everything on a bike like this, you want to be nice and secure, make sure it's staying. I like these things. I really just couldn't pass up this bike. Look at it. So this is one of the Orbea TT bikes of the Lotto team. And I wanted to take a look at it just really for this front end. It's an absolutely enormous front end. Your man here is obviously a very tall rider, and his speed bar setup up here, well, it's kind of a speed, the extensions up here are a speed bar design, but then I would imagine the base bar and the mono riser are, you know, an Orbea kind of integrated thing for the bike. But this looks really, really nice. You've got some kind of 3D printed hand holds at the front with the Di2 buttons integrated very, very neatly. There's a 3D printed Garmin mount. You know, the elbow kind of pads, they're all carbon. They've got a bit of foam running up the center for a bit of comfort. I thought this looked fantastic, and it just looks like it's been really, really well thought out, very well designed. Very nice that, but absolutely huge. This is a super small thing, and these have just come out of the washing machine by the looks of it. But these are the ice vets that the riders use in TT warm-ups, but also just before the start of really hot stages, because keeping your body cool is a massive, massive performance benefit. As a Brit abroad right now, 26, quite sunny, I could do with one of these. I also love the amount of choice that Pro Cyclist has when it comes to personal items like their saddle. And obviously they've pretty much these days got to stick within the brand that kind of supplies them. But this is Ethan Hayter's bike, and he's a really good time trialist. He's got a super, super low position at the front. And so he's running a TT saddle. This one, again, is from Specialized, saddle provider for the team. But yeah, we don't see too many TT saddles on road bikes these days, but maybe this helps him to just get really, really low at the front, and maybe it just supports him in that position. Well, as the race rolls out just over there, I think what we can say is that unlike this is definitely a year of evolution rather than, well, revolution. If you've liked this video and all of the tech that we've seen today, I've had a great time. Please like the video. Although, if you've watched, I say Mr. Bus, if you watched this far, then you've probably helped out the channel as best possible. Thank you very much for watching. And if you want to see that new cube, just up here. See you next time.